Chris Brown joins us from our bureau in London. You know Chris from his many years at the helm of our Moscow bureau for CBC News, and he has been reporting on the international reaction to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Chris with me this morning, and I'll just as a preface, at CBCNews.ca is Chris's latest analysis piece, well worth your time. Number one, good morning and welcome, Chris. I'm happy to talk to you today.
Good to be with you, Heather.
So if we look at those pictures again, what are being posted on social media, you see the Russian military, Chris, closing in on Kyiv. And why don't we start with what is the basic hypothesis to your latest piece, moving in particularly to target potentially the Zelensky government. There have been people referring to it as an attempt to decapitate the government, replace it. Is that what you see happening there?
It's a chilling term, but it seems to be accurate. You know, the Ukrainian army is outmatched technologically, but they do have a lot of people who can potentially fight. So it does appear that the directions that the Russian troops have been taking is to go as quickly as they can towards literally the parliament, towards the presidential offices, not trying to hold any territory, but just get to the leadership as quickly as possible. Thinking appears to be that if they can get rid of Volodymyr Zelensky, make him sign some kind of surrender, and they can put in their own person there, Russia can put in their own person, then all of this fighting will come to an end. So it's a very, very big ask and a very, very, demanding strategy, because, of course, as we've seen, the Ukrainians haven't just fallen over and not fought. The fighting has been intense. Nonetheless, the Russians are pushing very, very close to Zelensky. And last night he was on TV saying, "I am the number one target. My family is the number two target." I was talking to an MP from the Rada yesterday, Ivana Klimpousch-Synsade, and she had actually been given, as all the other MPs had been given, automatic rifles. And her job, she saw it, if it came to it, was to actually defend the presidential offices and defend the parliament if it came down literally to hand-to-hand fighting. So, I mean, she was very, very upset, very, very grim talking to her. But that's the mindset right now, some of the people around Zelensky.
Parliamentarians taking up arms, people in the streets urged to equip themselves, arm themselves with Molotov cocktails, even as the army moves in ever closer. So if, as you suggest, we heard that from Antony Blinken as well, Chris, the aim seems to be to topple the Zelensky government and install a puppet government. What does that then become a piece of in terms of the ultimate ambition? Why is Putin pursuing this path?
Well, so much of this has been channeled for years. From the minute I went to Moscow almost 5 years ago, the very first interview I did with Maria Zakharova from the Foreign Affairs Ministry, she referred to Ukrainians as Nazis. And it was striking to hear it because I'm like, you can't be serious. But of course, that's exactly what she said. She was very serious. And those same words are being recycled again today. So the whole point is that they believe that the government in Kyiv is an illegal one, that it was overthrown. The legitimate one was overthrown in 2014, a government that was much more favorable to Russia. They called it a CIA coup. And so the thinking is that they're going to replace this illegal government with with one of their choosing. I've not met any Ukrainians who've ever said, in the many, many times I've been there, that's anything that they're ever going to follow. So there's a big disconnect between what the Russians are saying they're going to do and perhaps actually believing what might happen and what Ukrainians, how they'll react to that if that event should ever happen.
As you say, right now, as far as resistance, the Ukrainians fighting back are showing a strong resolve and what has been surprising to some military experts, a very strong resistance to the arrival of those Russian troops. I want to ask about the people in Moscow. We have pictures, Chris, of some of the scenes yesterday, quite extraordinary. Protests in dozens of Russian cities, including in Moscow, met with police responding to them very forcefully, arresting some 1,700 protesters. But how did it strike you, Chris, to watch what was going on right in Russia as they protested the moves of their own president?
So you have to be very, very, very brave these days to go out into the streets of Moscow or St. Petersburg or any other city, because you can almost be certain that not only will you be arrested, but the law is going to come down extremely harshly on all of your family members, anyone that you love or care about. You could lose your job. And so it was significant, let's say, that there were thousands of people, I think in 53 different cities all across the country, that put all of that at risk to come out and to voice their opposition. Notably, they weren't being led by anyone. There is no opposition leader now in Russia that's taking on this anti-war role. Alexei Navalny, who was sort of the de facto opposition leader, has of course been thrown in jail a year ago by Vladimir Putin after Russian authorities tried to assassinate him. So this is a leaderless kind of thing, which made it even less likely that it would succeed. I think what we should look for maybe in the days ahead isn't so much what's happening on the streets, because while that's important, what's perhaps more important is what is happening in Russia's ruling class. We saw that Vladimir Putin, before this happened, made all of the people in his security services, the defense ministry, go on national TV and say, we support this engagement, we support this war that we're going to bring upon Ukraine. So are there going to be any splits in the ruling elite? Is anyone going to carve away? Is anyone going to stand up to Putin? Because without an opposition leader on the outside, that opposition, for anything to happen, for any of this to be slowed inside Russia, will have to come from that ruling elite. And so far, we've not seen any signs of that.
Chris, thank you so much. Our former Moscow correspondent, now based in London, invaluable analysis, and again, a piece up on CBC News.ca. Thank you, Chris.